And welcome to another edition of Anthony and Ari Unfiltered, a weekly radio show with former Congressman Anthony Esposito and Inspector General, Department of Labor, in conversation with Assemblyman Ari Brown on the hot button issues of the day. Here now are your hosts.
Thanks, Ev. Now, today we're going to take a little different approach. It's going to be a back and forth banter between the congressman and I. We're going to talk about the clown show that is New York politics. Congressman, I saw on TV that clown of a governor that we have, Kathy Hochul, standing with that communist Jew hater Zoran Mamdani. Of course, Speaker Carl Hastie, who stabbed everybody in the back, even though he didn't let the Not on My Dime bill come to the assembly floor. And of course, Letitia James and all the other clowns. What do you make of all this?
Listen, I think that first, take Kathy Hochul, for example, who I would argue, and we've had this conversation, is probably the most inept governor in the United States of America. I mean, she legitimately tries on one day to say that she's this tough on crime, woman of the people who wants to stand with law enforcement and the law-abiding citizen. Yet, but then the next day, she's on stage with a communist who has called the New York City Police Department wicked and corrupt and has demanded to defund it and dismantle it. He's a guy who wants to abolish prisons and jails. I mean, this is what she's endorsing. This is what she's standing behind. And I think it really tells a story of what the picture is of the Democratic Party across the United States of America. And, you have these individuals who are trying to say, well, we're not with that. We're moderate. There's no more moderation. It is the left wing of the party are the faces of the party. The fact is that if you and I got on a plane right now and traveled across the country to California and worked our way back, if you ask people who's the face, who's the face of the Democratic Party in the United States of America, AOC. They're going to say AOC. And at this point, with all of the press that he's gotten, they're going to say Zoran Mamdani. And what we're going to see, I mean, it's going to be interesting, when we get to 2026, between the governor's race and between the House of Representatives and the amount of money that's going to be spent on these, battleground seats. When you have a guy, the leader of the Democratic Conference, Hakeem Jeffries, who really tried to fake everyone out, and Schumer. He was giving thought to what he was going to do. I mean, well, what happened? So he shut down the government. He had extra time to think about it. We all knew that in the end, he was going to endorse a anti-Semitic, anti-Jew, anti-Israel, anti-cop, anti-democracy, anti-America individual like Zoran Mamdani, and that's exactly what he did. And now in 2026, everyone of the candidates running as a Democrat in these battleground seats are going to have to defend the idea that their leader supported Zoran Mamdani, and that's whether he wins or loses.
So let's break this down. I was just thinking of Kathy Hochul again. In person she happens to be very, very nice one-on-one, but just as a politician, she's just calls herself a Buffalo mom. She's really what? A socialist, communist apprentice. That's really what she is. But let's get into this thing with Curtis Sliwa and Andrew Cuomo. So many people, especially my Jewish brethren, are saying that Curtis should have dropped out. I totally disagree with that. And I'm one of the few people that actually say that. Why? As you had mentioned, he is a main party candidate, a Republican Party candidate. How can you have an election without a Republican running? But more than that, if as men, as guys, and you understand it, you're a man's man, if we're not loyal to our friends, what are we? Here's a guy that asked for nothing for 50 years, defended New Yorkers, didn't get rich on the public dime, and he doesn't deserve our support. People say he's a clown. Why is he a clown? Because he wears a red beret? That's his calling card. People recognize him. When he took off the hat, honestly, I didn't know who he was.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, what it comes down to is I keep hearing over and over again, well, there's one person that could, derail Zoran Mamdani. Quite frankly, that's nonsense. It's total BS, because there's 4.7 million people in the city of New York that have the opportunity to make sure that Zoran Mamdani is not the mayor. And what they should be doing is driving people out to vote. And at that point, you could vote for whoever you want. Vote for Andrew Cuomo, vote for Zoran Mamdani. I don't care who you vote for, but to to spread this idea and create this narrative that the Cuomo campaign is that he's the only one that can derail Zohran Mamdani from taking Gracie Mansion is just nonsense. There's 4.7 million people that live in the city of New York that should be out there voting, and you're right. The fact is, and this is not just in this election, but especially this election, when you have someone who has, called for the destruction of the state of Israel and is a total anti-Semite who has, campaigned with an unindicted co-conspirator of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. I mean, the fact that, any Jew in New York would vote for him is just mind baffling. But nonetheless, I mean, it's something that you talk about regularly that we have to overcome.
You're right, and it is something. And my fellow Jews give me a lot of heat over it. But also, as you know, I'm the only yarmulke-wearing Republican in state legislative history. That's not a good thing. I'm ashamed that my fellow Jews can't step up and do the right thing. I think I have 9 bills on anti-Semitism. I can't get one of my colleagues, Jewish colleagues on the other side of the aisle, to stand with me, though every Christian does stand with me.
Well, wait till he wins. It's only going to get worse.
And they're still going to support him. You will see 30% will support Zohran Mamdani. And I say to my Orthodox, the non-religious, they want to pretend they're not Jewish. Okay. But the ones on the other side of the aisle, if they would come to my side of the aisle, the people that actually embrace them, support the Jewish people, the party that isn't the Klan, that isn't the party of the segregationists, that isn't the party of the Zohran Mamdani's calling for the destruction of the Jewish people, we get rid of the super majority in the assembly and take away even more power from the majority and the governor. But they won't do it. Why? People ask why. Because they get little bits of money. They go after the scraps that they get. Carl Hastie, who turned his back on the Jewish people completely and endorsed immediately Zohran. I've never seen men cower like little girls. I've never seen anything
Look what Chuck Schumer has done. I mean, you think about the days following October 7th, he goes on the floor of the Senate and says that Bibi Netanyahu should resign from his position. I mean, we've had this conversation before, but that's like, days after September 11th, 2001, a leader in a foreign nation going on the floor of their government saying that George Bush should have resigned just because of the attacks on the World Trade Center. I mean, it's just insane. And a guy like Schumer, who has spent, he's been in Washington, D.C. longer than I've been alive. And he's
making me feel very old because I just remember when he got into it.
And he spent those years, trying to be this, the shomer of the Jews, right? And he's turned into someone who has absolutely turned his back on them. And the reason why is because he's afraid of the left flank.
The congressman made an excellent point. We had a true shomer of the state of Israel, the Jewish people, Senator Al D'Amato. And what did the Jewish people do? We turned our backs on him. Not me. I've always been a Republican. My Jewish brethren, wake up already. I know we have a lot of Jewish listeners. It's time to vote Republican. Over the last few days with early voting, I've been getting endless messages from people saying, well, how do I vote? At this point of the game, do I really have to tell you, vote Republican across the board? Yeah. It's just,
and it's not just, and thank you to everybody listening each week on WNEW 102.7 and WSNR 620 AM for Anthony and Ari Unfiltered, but it goes far beyond the geographical lines in the city of New York. And when you talk about people who protect the Jewish people, but protect everyone. I mean, listen, it's not easy to become the safest county in the United States of America. And
Bruce is doing a great job
here in Nassau County. We are. And Bruce Blakeman and his leadership has been phenomenal, whether it's taking the masks off people, whether it's protecting girls' sports, whether it's funding and investing in police departments and fire departments and making this county safer. And just honestly, having common sense. Him and Annie Donnelly, and we have a new supervisor in the town of Hempstead, John Ferretti, who we had on the show last week. He's been phenomenal. But my point is that this, depending on what happens in just a few days on Tuesday when the polls close in New York City, Nassau County, we keep saying there's this line. Well, there's going to be a line because those people in Queens and like you said, we have that border just right on the Nassau Queens border.
I could throw a ball at it from my house.
And just on that line, you're going to have an anti-American, anti-Israel communist mayor. and thankfully we have leadership here in Nassau County. So when you talk about getting out and voting, I think it's critically important, not just for our listeners in New York City, but our listeners here in Nassau County. Get out early and show your support for the team that. And I say this all the time. I'm not saying this because I am a conservative Republican. I'm not saying it because these people are my friends. I'm saying it for two reasons. The Republicans that are running this year, County Executive Blakeman, Annie Donnelly, John Ferretti, they've earned your vote, right? They've made this county and this town safer. They've made it more affordable. They're investing in the things that matter most. They're expanding resources and services. I mean, John Ferretti just implemented a tax cut budget for.
I got to tell you, I love that
2026.
guy. He's been so responsive. He's running the largest township in the country, and yet you call him, he's there immediately.
So that's important, and I think we need to continue that. And I think that that's going to be the stepping stone for 2026 when we want to take back New York State.
We talked about all the great electeds and everything great about Long Island. There's a big push again from Kathy Hochul, and she said regarding the redistricting. President Trump, and rightfully so, wants to take back certain districts because it is disproportionate against Republicans. The Democrats have gerrymandered it to an extreme. So Kathy Hochul shot back. Well, you're going to do that? Wait till you see what we're going to do. I heard, and I've read even in today's paper, that they're trying to make this move in Staten Island, in the cold Maui Caucasus.
Yeah, they're trying to claim that I guess the Black and Brown, Hispanic, African American communities are not represented equally. I mean, these were congressional seats that were redistricted just a couple of years ago.
That Hakeem liked.
So I'm a little confused, but I think what that's going to do is, this is a preliminary strike, so to speak. I mean, I think this is the article that's going to set the tone for Kathy Hochul to try to articulate to the New Yorkers why she's going to redistrict the entire state. And we'll see what happens. I mean, she's, I'm assuming, going to try to get it done by 2026. I think when you guys return to Albany, it should be pretty interesting,
to say the least. And talk about interesting when what's happening in Albany with crazy legislation. I want to break something down very simply for our listeners. There was a bill that was passed in the most simplest terms that if a new home is to be built, or a new building under a certain amount of stories is to be built in New York, it has to be purely electric. In other words, no more propane and no more gas. And they took it to such an extreme that they removed what was called the 100-foot rule. I'm a builder. If I were to build a house, if the structure was within 100 feet of the gas service, the National Grid or whatever your utility would supply a gas line. Canceled. You can still pay for it out of your pocket, but what's the point if you can't build a new house with anything but electric? I'm sure our listeners have noticed that their electric bills have gone through the roof. You've seen nothing yet. Imagine running an electric dryer, one or two air conditioning compressors during the summer month. You will have bills $1,200. I have nobody in the house. All my kids are grown and grandkids, and for some reason, that $400 and $500 electric.
Wait! You don't think Kathy Hochul's offshore wind is going to save the day?
Yeah. So again, look what she just like our congressman said. Look what she tried to do to destroy the vista, break up our streets in Long Beach and the neighboring towns. This is what's in store. If you think this is just a New York City issue, you are boldly wrong, because if Zoran gets in, think of it. It's not that he's an age 33, a child. You can be 23 and be a Superman and be a real leader. He has no life experience. He has never had a job. His parents took care of him. Even the one job that he had as Assemblyman, to be honest, if I saw him one time, and then when he came to the floor 2 times, he came just to maybe vote. I think he missed most of the votes.
I mean, I think it's been said, I mean, you would know better than me, but I think it's been said that he's got one of the worst attendance than any other member.
I don't think he's ever sat in the seat. His seat is actually brand new. It's like, I wish some of my classic car seats look like his seat in the Assembly, spanking brand new.
Another thing that I think needs to be talked about real quick is we keep talking about the city and obviously the Mamdani's efforts to defund and dismantle the police and get rid of specialty units and break down federal and local collaboration and intelligence sharing between the NYPD and federal agencies that make sure that, you know, guns aren't trafficked into our communities, that terrorists are caught and terrorist attacks are thwarted, that you know, illegal poison in narcotics, you know, sharing information, that's going to be over. There's not going to be any collaboration.
We'll have social workers
Right.
handling it
Right.
instead of police officers.
But I think what's also important is the climate that's going to be set, and I think that one of the things that a lot of people aren't talking about is the fact that if this guy wins, he's going to give the already radical and rogue district attorneys in New York City, he's going to give them, you know, broader shoulders and this more of a peacock approach that they're going to be able to completely do whatever they want and completely, you know, ignore victims, and again, you know, really start to put, as that they have already, but put criminals ahead of law.
You hit the nail right on the head. I think it was last night when Letitia James was at Zoran's event over there. She said, and my baby brother Zoran. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
You don't have enough problems with Greg and James. Now she's going to be empowered even more.
And she's really supposed to be the highest ranking law enforcement officer in the state of New York. And her little brother wants to dismantle and defund law enforcement.
It's really incredible. People, start voting the right way. It's not good for all of New York. I wish Long Island could be its own state. I wish you can be our governor, but you never know. But what do you think is going to happen with the gubernatorial race? I know we're focused on these immediate ones now. How do you think this is going to play out?
I think that we have a real opportunity. I think, thankfully, the Republican Party across New York State has a few candidates that would be dynamic and really be able to deliver on the promises of taking back New York. I think that the issues are certainly on our side, whether Zoran Mamdani is victorious or not. You have a sitting governor. You have the Democratic leader in the House. I would assume that, you know, the Democratic leader in the Senate all have endorsed, you know, called him their baby brother in Zoran Mamdani.
Andrea Stewart-Cousins also was up there on stage.
So I think that looking forward to 2026, I think, you know, with President Trump in the White House and his ability to on the political end raise money, the fact that Speaker Johnson, you know, my dear friend Mike Johnson, is breaking fundraising records around the country with the amount of money that he's raising. I think that we have a real opportunity in 2026 to save New York. And I think we have, you know, potential candidates who will drive out the vote in areas that we need. And I think that in that process, we could see a similar situation to 2022, where we win back, you know, some of these congressional seats and maybe even pick up a couple.
Well, let's talk about the silver lining. Let's say Mamdani wins. How do you think that plays out for Republicans, for Long Islanders, for New Yorkers? Do you think that people will become more aware and people will lean more conservative?
I would hope that people, you know, don't look at it as a conservative liberal. I think that people are going to look at it as common sense, right? And I think that we've done our best as the Republican Conservative Party to be that party of common sense. And quite frankly, you have, you know, individuals that run around Long Island, you know, some of them right here in Nassau County in the town of Hempstead, who claim I'm a moderate, I'm this, I'm that. I mean, take Laura Gillen, for example, right? She tries to claim I'm a moderate, I'm that. Your leader endorsed Zoran Mamdani, okay? You voted to shut down the government here in the United States of America. You now have, you know, the air traffic controllers, right? Who she decided in order to make this all right, she's going to go to the air traffic controllers and deliver pizza, right? She thought that was going to solve the problem. Yeah. You now have the air traffic controllers flat out saying, listen, this is a democratic shutdown. The fact is that Democrats need to get back to work and open up the government. You have other labor unions, some of the biggest in the country, now saying this is a democratic shutdown. So
I hope they have a long memory, at least for another year.
You and me both. But the thing is that you can't claim to be a moderate and then embrace, you know, individuals like Kathy Hochul, like Hakeem Jeffries, like Chuck Schumer, and others. And the fact is that there is no question. I mean, the NRCC announced this morning that they are going to use the endorsement Mamdani by certain Democrats throughout really New York State. And they are going to use that in the 2026 election because most Americans realize that he is bad for New York City, and he represents, and I think, he represents something that the Democrats, a lot of Democrats aren't. And I hear it all the time. I mean, last night I was at an event with some prominent Democrats who are here in Nassau County supporting Republicans. And you know what they say? They said, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me.
One of my predecessors, I was with him, Harvey Wiesenberg, nice fella. He said, Ari, I'm a Republican now. My exactly as you said, my party has left me.
Yeah. So I think that in a place like Nassau County, where there's 125,000 more Democrats registered than Republicans, and we are able to win the county and win the cities and win the 3 towns, I think that tells you a message that, the independent or the unaffiliated voters are the ones that are really making the difference. And it also says that, I mean, look at a place like the city of Long Beach, where I won the city of Long Beach in 2022. I won it in 2024. And that's a place where we're outnumbered 6-1. You're winning Long Beach. I mean, and I think so. And I think on Tuesday, we have a good chance of taking a clean sweep and having the city council in Long Beach. And that's not because of Republican or Democrat. It's because it's common sense, and Democrats are voting Republican. And I think that's why we are going to be successful in 2026 in taking back this state. And it's one of the reasons as to why I believe we're going to be able to take back these congressional seats and maybe pick up a couple.
Congressman, before this show concludes, I want to touch on something that a lot of people don't understand, and I get asked all the time, the odd even year situation and how it affects New Yorkers. People hear it, they think it's some vague thing, but it's not.
No, it's real life.
It's very sinister.
Yeah.
Please explain it.
It's real life, and quite frankly, it's another example of Kathy Hochul disenfranchising voters, right? So the way that it's worked in New York State, at least for as long as I've been alive, for as long as you've been alive, is that you have what we call, obviously the presidential election, which is every 4 years. And then you have the gubernatorial year election, which we call the off-year election. So really, when you look at voter turnout is the biggest in a presidential turnout. And then it's second, or I should say, and then second is the gubernatorial year. So we call it the even year. So the gubernatorial year would be all members of Congress, your state legislators, so yourself, our Senator Patricia Canzoneri Fitzpatrick. And then in the presidential year is obviously the president, members of Congress, usually one senator from a state. And then in the off years, which is the odd years, you have the local elections, the ones that are for the town supervisor, city council, councilman, legislator, county executive.
So what did she change? What happened?
So what she decided to do is she decided to take all of the local elections. So when you need to get your pothole filled and you make a phone call, those people will now be running in an even year. And she's done it because we've been successful in the odd years to drive out the vote and win these seats. And what does she do when she can't beat us in the ballot box? She just changes the rules.
So what's going to happen is, what I think I'm understanding is, this ballot is going to be so long, I can walk from my house in Cedars to your house in Island Park and still not to get to the end of the ballot.
Right.
And the assembly is at the end, so there'll be such voting fatigue.
But I mean, the other thing too, which is probably, I think we're gonna be able to talk to people and say, listen, you got to stick in there, you got to cramp out your hand and keep writing. But the other thing that's really, I think, really disenfranchises the voter and the message is the money. You think about, in my congressional race, there was $32 million spent against me. You and me both know you could not turn on the TV without listening to the lies and nonsense that the DCCC was spreading.
But you're so good looking, everybody didn't see through all of that.
All BS. But nonetheless, that's what people heard almost 20 hours a day. So now you're going to get to either a presidential year or a governor's year where the airwaves are going to be saturated by those of us that have the money, the congressional races, the governor's race, or the presidential race. And you're never going to be able to hear from your county executive or your town supervisor or your local council.
I think we're going to hear. He somehow gets that message.
But you know what I mean. It's the saturation. And in New York, where we have the most expensive media market in the country. I mean, you take what was spent combined in my congressional race. There are governors that run for in statewide and don't spend a quarter combined of what we spent just from our campaign.
Great.
So, I mean, listen, Kathy Hochul knows she can't beat us at the ballot box, so she's changing the rules. And in the process, once again, it's that overreach. It's the overreach that she's made the pinnacle or the highlight of her tenure, which is, taking away local zoning rights from towns and villages, whether it's, raise the age, clean slate, cashless bail, criminal justice reform, congestion pricing, all of the stuff that she continues to overreach. Now she's literally putting her hand on your ballot and saying you're disenfranchised.
Kathy Hochul now is insignificant. She says she's the leader of the Democratic Party in New York, but she's actually not.
She's not.
It's Mamdani, it's AOC, and she is irrelevant at this point. She's trying to survive. That's why she endorsed him in the hopes and prayers they will primary her. She'll be out. Obviously I'm a different generation. This same thing happened when I was a kid. I used to marvel as a kid at all the Jews and Democrats who used to vote just because they were in love with FDR.
Absolutely.
FDR, he saved us. He turned my mother's boat back from Italy.
Yeah.
What do you mean he saved us? But it's just in the mother's milk, they used to say. And now it's the same thing with AOC and Mamdani.
And, we only have 2 minutes to go, but, first of all, I want to thank everyone again for joining Anthony and Ari Unfiltered on 102.7 FM and 620 AM. But I also want to just point out that, I'm actually interested to see what happens after this mayoral campaign. We're not sure of who's going to be the victor, right? But I think that if you read all the polls are only a snapshot in time, but it seems like Mamdani's got the edge. One thing that he hasn't committed to is who he'd support in the Democratic governor's race in 2026.
Each one called each other disgusting at some point.
Does Zoran do a short stay and run right for governor?
Or maybe AOC. You never know. We'll see. It really is a clown show beyond a clown show, but we got the scary type of clowns, not the funny clowns in this show. People, I say it a million times, start voting the right way. Your children, my grandchildren, all depend on us doing the right thing by them. You've been listening to the Anthony and Ari Unfiltered on WNEW and WSNR.
Yeah.
Another great show.
Absolutely. Few days to vote. And listen, our grandfathers, fathers, great-grandfathers died on battlefields for the ability for us to vote. Get out there, Republican or Democrat, cast your ballot. It's an American right that we fought for. God bless everybody.
Hold on, please.